Jackson Hinkle and other Western Russian lapdogs have decided they are going to eat the shoveled nonsense that is shoveled towards them more, just without critical thought, without critical thinking, than the actual Russian military bloggers in Russia. I want to talk to you guys about the battle for Soledar. Now, if you look at this giant map of Ukraine right here, this is from Live Map. You can access it anytime online. It shows you some, like, it's not extremely accurate when it comes to exact positionings on the map. Neither is really any Ascent map, but something that's very, very useful about this is it kind of like gives you access to like where the explosions are happening all across Ukraine. You look at specific details, statements from government officials, media stations, stuff like that. It like automatically lists that stuff here, makes it available for public consumption. But I don't want to talk too much about Ascent, what's the best Ascent groups, Ascent maps, open source intel, stuff like that. What I want to concentrate on today is the battle in eastern Ukraine, and specifically the battle for Bakhmut. But even more specifically, not really even the battle for Bakhmut itself, because Bakhmut was like a lot of other areas in eastern Ukraine, heavily shelled right now. But Bakhmut is a target that the Russians want to capture, because they, by capturing Bakhmut, could then later capture other locations across the Donbass, because this is within Donetsk. And then after they capture these other locations, they could eventually end up capturing maybe Kramatorsk or other major cities that are in the Donbass that are necessary for them to capture the rest of it. So Bakhmut is a step in that direction. Now, is it overall an extremely strategically important location? Not really. Like, the capturing of Bakhmut does not mean like the collapse of the Ukrainian line. The capturing of Bakhmut doesn't mean like Ukrainian logistics are going to be completely ruined or anything, but it is a step forward for the Russians and their goal of capturing all of the Donbass, which is something that they've been doing for a while, right? So that is the importance of Bakhmut. But the Russians have been basically slamming their head against the wall when it comes to Bakhmut and losing thousands of soldiers in the process. High casualties on both sides, but the amount of soldiers Russia is losing is making a lot of Russian commentators and just, you know, everyone has made a lot of people start to ask like whether or not it's worth it for the Russians. But as an extension of this battle, the battle for Bakhmut, which has had a lot of ebbs and flows, but the Russians have been unable to really garner a foothold within the city. They've been able to maybe get in for a little bit, but then they're ultimately pushed out just about every time. But as an extension of that battle, a little bit to the north of it, is this tiny city right here by the name of Soledar, which is a salt mining, it's a salt mining city, a salt mining village, a salt mining town, whatever you want to call it. But they have salt mines in it, which are extremely useful and could be used to hide from like airstrikes and artillery bombardments, and would be necessary if the to capture if the Russians wanted to, say, encircle Bakhmut. Capturing Soledar does not necessarily mean they're going to encircle Bakhmut, but it would be a necessary capture for the Russians to encircle Bakhmut, and it would be a step in the right direction. So the battle for Soledar, to put it in perspective, because everybody's talking about Soledar now, it's on the lips of every newscaster. The battle for Soledar is a microcosm of the battle for Bakhmut, which is a microcosm for the battle for, say, like Sloviansk and Kramatorsk. I've been to Kramatorsk. It is a heavily defended location, has a lot of defenders in it. It's a much bigger city than either Bakhmut or Soledar. And they really, really want to capture it, the Russians, because that would be like the last major stronghold in Donetsk. So we're talking about a microcosm within a microcosm within a microcosm within a microcosm. We're talking about something that, in the grand scheme of things, is not like, say, the capturing of the city of Kherson or the Russian capturing of, any other very major location, like major rail hub, or, major city, or some location like that. That is not what we're seeing here. What we're seeing here is a microcosm within a microcosm within a microcosm. That doesn't mean it's not important. These have extreme now symbolic significance because of the amount of casualties the Russians have taken while trying to capture Soledar and Bakhmut and all these other locations in East Ukraine. It has a mighty political and propaganda significance now for the Russians, especially for the Wagner group, who have kind of, in a lot of ways, bet their reputation on the capturing of Bakhmut. They have really dominated the fight to capture Bakhmut with their prisoner soldiers, and Prigozhin, I never know how to pronounce his name correctly, has really made this a sticking point. Like, we will capture Bakhmut. And he's been saying that for months, until recently, when it seems like he's casting more doubts about their ability to capture Bakhmut. Now they're a little bit more nervous about whether they're going to be able to do it or not. But anyway, recently, for the fight for Soledar, the microcosm within the microcosm within the microcosm, the Russians have reportedly, according to them, they said this about 48 hours to 24 hours ago. I don't know the exact time they said it, but they said that they've captured Soledar, that it's theirs. And even that they encircled it with 300 to 400 Ukrainian soldiers within Soledar. And immediately once the Russians said this, you saw a lot of people in the like pro-Russia, Russian lapdog sphere just repeating it like verbatim. For example, Jackson Hinkle, the ever unbiased and honorable political commentator, immediately came to Twitter to kind of like espouse that his grand hero Vladimir Putin had garnered another conquest with the encirclement of 300 to 400 Ukrainian dogs, and Soledar has fallen, right? But those reports, we need to remember, is from the Russian government. And while they have posted some photos of Wagner soldiers with what is, according to them, Soledar salt mines, at the same time that they're posting those photographs and some videos from around the Soledar area, the Ukrainians have also been posting videos and photos from around this area. This is from earlier today, about like 12, maybe 13, 14 hours ago, the morning of today, where a Ukrainian soldier speaks into the camera and talks about how they're still holding not Bakhmut, but they're still holding Bakhmut, but they're holding Soledar. He's within Soledar, and all the reports that the Russians are putting out that Soledar has fallen is not true. Let's watch a little bit of this guy. I will warn you guys, as I found to be the case in Ukraine, he's got a very dirty mouth. Okay, let's listen. These are the sounds of Soledar. I want to reassure you that the situation is absolutely under control. What time is it? Now it's 10 a.m. The morning of January 11th. The situation for the F-slurs, when he says F-slurs here, he's saying that, he's signaling that the Russians are the F-slurs. I will say that from my time of listening to like Russian and Ukrainian back and forth like trash talk, their use of the F slur back and forth towards each other is one of the things that I think culturally ties them together the most, I've seen personally. And a lot of times they don't even mean it in like a homophobic way. They mean it in like of course, the use of it is almost like inherently homophobic to some capacity. I don't want to get into the specifics of the morality of the word. I'm not right now, not here. But it's kind of like almost, for a lot of them, it's almost like gamers in like Modern Warfare 3, you know, where you just say as many offensive things as possible to try to get under their skin. You know what I mean? The Eminem way, exactly. But for a lot of them, it also is homophobic. But the back and forth of calling each other the F slur is something that I've seen consistent in this war. Very consistent. The situation for the F-slurs did not improve since last night. All the lines are preserved and under the reliable control of the AFU. Local fights happen from time to time, and artillery is working on both sides. Igar's birds are doing their job. A local speciality of Bakhmut and Soledar is that everyone has huge stocks of tomato juice. We tried it when it wasn't freezing. It was nice and natural. Locals love it. And now they're showing us camera footage of Soledar, the battle for it. As you can see, it's covered in smoke. My goodness, man. Place is a meat grinder. Anyway, I wanted to show you this. It's like you can. Oh, well, actually, let's go a little further. Around here, right here. Hospital. Ah, well, yes. Talk. They are coming. Efsler is walking across the street. Fuck, look how many of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Where are they going? 7, 8, 9, 10. For fuck's sake, to the left. You see, guys, outskirts of Soledar. I mean, this, from all what I've been told from my conversations, okay, online, with soldiers, and with people who are at least more in the know than me, seems to be that the Russian strategy right now, they are relying on the fact that they just have more people, their mind at least, to pull from, because they're the great and amazing and powerful Russia. They're conscripting all these people. They're kind of just like throwing them at these fortifications and like wearing them down over time, where eventually like maybe Ukrainian soldiers run out of bullets or there'll be a breakthrough. Obviously it takes a lot of men, a lot more men to take a city, to take a village than it does to defend it. And that's the problem the Russians are running into, that even if there's an argument to be made that they could pull upon more manpower overall, that doesn't necessarily mean that the Ukrainians can't relocate the forces that they just got back from Kherson into the east to defend this area, or that they still have enough to take these settlements. Man, it must be weird. I can imagine being able to just like look at a camera and have a live feed of the people who are actively trying to kill you, like seeing it. It must be weird.
7, 8, 9, 10.
You witness yourself how many enemy groups are moving from house to house. Taking certain positions, the typical manner of them moving across the city. Anyway, you get the idea, right? You get the idea. Ukrainians are still within Soledar, and as far as I know, there hasn't been an encirclement. And I have gone on to a few like Russian military bloggers, like Telegram accounts, to see what they're saying about the situation. And it seems that even like Russian military bloggers don't seem to be buying the narrative that Soledar has fallen. It's a done deal. Don't worry about it. 300 to 400 Ukrainians surrounded. Actually, I think I had one of them up in Discord. I can probably bring it up here. 1 second. Here it is. The capture of the center and most of Soledar by the Wagner Group units is undoubtedly a tactical success. So this is a Russian military blogger saying they've captured most of Soledar. I don't know what percentage of Soledar they've captured. They're most certainly within Soledar. I don't know if it's a majority or less than a majority. I don't know if it's, I doubt it's like 90%, but it's a little blurry right now and I can't really give you an exact number. However, the enemy's front was not broken through. It was not possible to surround the units defending the city. So the Russian claim that 300 to 400 Ukrainians were surrounded, that people like Jackson Hinkle and other lapdogs for the Russian state repeated, even Russian military bloggers aren't buying the propaganda. Meaning that Jackson Hinkle and other Western Russian lapdogs have decided they're going to eat the shoveled nonsense that is shoveled towards them, more just without critical thought, without critical thinking, than the actual Russian military bloggers in Russia. That Russian military bloggers are going to be more critical in their analysis of the situation than Westoid pro-Russia commentators. My goodness, man. At a certain point, it's no longer like oh, I multipolar, like I believe in that. And at a certain point it becomes kind of like, you know, like the fetishization that a lot of people do with Japan, you know, like a lot of weeaboos and stuff. And I know that there's like a version of it for like the Germans in World War II. I think they call them wereaboos. I guess this is like a Russaboo. At a certain point it has to be like a Russaboo if you're getting to that point. The enemy is creating a new line of defense on the western outskirts, relying on the salt mines. The battle for the city is not over yet. The western suburbs and suburbs will have to be stormed. Man. Hey! Phantom Freak, thank you so much for the Prime being sub for 3 months. I saw somebody drop 300 biddies earlier. I don't know who you were. I didn't get to see it, but I appreciate the bits drop. Maybe I can scroll up and find it. Yeah, there it is. Siron, seen a disgusting video of the Russian soldier disguised in a Ukrainian uniform ambushing 2 Ukrainians. Russian war crime intensify. I think I've seen it. But I don't know for sure. I didn't remember him being in a Ukrainian uniform. If you could link that to me in private, obviously I can't show that on the screen. Where were we? Oh yes, the enemy command is definitely in control of the situation, and although the retreat is accompanied by inevitable losses, including probably hundreds of garrison fighters forgotten in the buildings, control remains, in the building, control remains, and there is no question of the enemy fleeing. As for Bakhmut, so far the situation there has not changed significantly, although the coverage of the city from the north will significantly worsen the prospects from further defense. That is true. That is going to be harder for the Ukrainians to defend Bakhmut if they capture Soledar, which a lot of people are saying are a done deal. I am not as accepting of that narrative. I am not as accepting of the idea that Soledar is a done deal. It might be. I'm not a military expert, but the claims that the Russian government has put forward about Soledar when it comes to the hundreds of soldiers surrounded and oh, they've already captured it, is something that the Russian government has kind of engaged in every battle they fight. They'll say they've captured Lysychansk before they've captured Lysychansk. They'll say they captured Severodonetsk pretty a distant way from before they've captured Severodonetsk. They'll say this about basically every single major victory they do end up achieving. They end up announcing that victory early. The most obvious example of that, and this is an example where it backfired, is when in the early days of the war, after 48 hours, and this I think shows how the Russians really tried to end this within a week. They really thought they would, is that they announced that basically the entirety of the Ukrainian Air Force, 48 hours into the war, was completely disabled, and you saw like pro-Russia sources just kind of like repeating that information almost verbatim, not really thinking of it critically at all. Like the Russians with Attitude account, for example, the Russian with Attitude podcast and other pro-Russia forces, pro-Russia commentators. I think that this kind of has the signs of that, and it's not that they can't eventually capture all of Soledar or that they might later encircle soldiers, but the Russians seem to be celebrating pretty early. But not even the Russian military bloggers seem to be taking this at face value either. Even if Westoid pro-Russian commentators are. Zeroth, I'll send it on Discord. The disguise implied, however, with the Ukrainians yelling at him that they're on the same team. Thank you for the 300 bits. I wonder, because it might be that they were just literally confused, and they didn't know that he was a Russian soldier. Who knows? I have no clue. Did you watch Vosh's interview with Anastasia? Yes, I did. I released a video on it on my second channel on DylanBurnsLIVE. If you wanted to go check out my reaction to the conversation. I warn you, I was very, very tired. I hadn't had sleep. I hadn't had sleep in 48 hours. So do expect it to be a little slow running. Anyway, I do also want to show you guys some incredible footage out of Soledar. Now, this footage right here is of a medical evacuation done by the Ukrainians to try to get injured soldiers who had been hurt during the battle for Soledar, which is still currently ongoing, as of recording this video on January 11th. During that fight for Soledar, they evacuated these soldiers. And remember, this is a area that's being fought over very heavily. This is an area that the Russians are really desperately trying to take, and they're bombarding it heavily. Street by street, room by room fighting is going on. And look at the type of driving these medical evac people participate in order to get people out of Soledar so they can get proper medical treatment. Look at this. My God, look at Soledar, man.
Occurred.
Oh my God.
Trippy got a tier 3 subscription.
Trippy got a asterisk tier 3 asterisk subscription.
Thank you so much, Trippy, for the tier 3 subscription. There's not a lot of people that are part of the tier 3 club. Tier 3 club is an exclusive club. It is my board of globalist elites, and I appreciate you joining that board, Trippy, and assigning yourself the status of a global globalist shill. I appreciate it. Thank you for the, but for real, I appreciate the tier 3 subscription. But dude, but for real, we don't get a lot of those. I appreciate it. I never know how to properly thank somebody for like tier 3s because they are very rare and very cool. But look at the city from above. This is insane. Like, there isn't like 10 feet. Like, you cannot take like 3 steps in Soledar without like stumbling upon a shell crater. Look at this. The city is completely unlivable now. And like it looks like you don't see any movement, and so it's so crazy seeing this one vehicle trying to make a mad dash to evacuate people. And the thing is, if you look at this building right here, this building provides some cover for Ukrainian forces or Russian forces, whoever captured or hold it. But look at the roof. The roof is like caved in at multiple parts because of how much has been bombarded. And so like, as the battle gets further and further, like you're gonna be not even fighting in houses anymore. You're just gonna be fighting in like rubble and ruins. That's the bringing out the injured. There they go, mad dash. They're going for it. Dude, that is crazy stuff. Could you imagine being that guy? That being your job. Your job is literally just to drive into the line of fire, take the injured, and drive as fast as possible because minutes is what decides somebody's life. It's insane work. And after working with like ambulance drivers in this country, like they are some of the craziest people. Can I be for real with you? Like some of the craziest people I've met in this war are ambulance drivers. Like just like bonkers people. And I don't mean like, oh, they're drugged out bonkers. They're just like bonkers, like just bonkers. Paramedics are always nuts. It feels like it, at least in my case, because the two that I ended up working with, the first one was just like a weird, almost like pack leader guy with like a crazy eye, just a really interesting person. The second one, like literally just like carries a battle shield, charges in the combat in the age of like 60 to like drag out the wound, doing it for like 8 years. Yeah, the priest guy's the other one, exactly. The guy who has a religious objection to you. Anyway, man, the battle for Soledar continues, and anyone telling you that it's like over or it's done for is writing you like a false premise.